Hey, it's Ben here at the Strength Factory, and today I'm going to explain to you hydration. I'm going to make it as simple as possible, and I'm going to do that using this orange squash. We all know that hydration is really important to your performance, whether it's in your training, in your sport, in competition, and also just in day-to-day life and functioning properly and, being productive at work and things like that. Now, there's loads of information out there about hydration, and in one sense, it really can be quite complicated. And on the other end, just drink some water. But somewhere in the middle, there's a little bit of detail that's worth knowing and understanding that's just going to help you to make good decisions when you're training and when you're racing and things like that, and that's ultimately going to lead to improved performance. In my example then, this glass, this is you, this is your body, okay? And the squash in your body, the orange squash diluted, that represents the fluid in your body, okay? And at the moment, you're hydrated, it's pretty full, everything's good. Now, what makes up this fluid? It's two things. Number one, it's water. And number two, it's orange squash, which in this case represents electrolytes, or to put it simply, salt. Now, in this ratio here, we're ideally hydrated, okay? So we've got salts and we've got water and we've got enough of it and I'm hydrated. When I'm like this, I can perform at my best. Now, I've been training hard and I've lost a load of fluid through perspiration, i.e. sweating, and through respiration, breathing. And whilst the exact ratio of water and salts is going to vary from person to person, basically you're going to lose both as you exercise. And at this point now, you're getting dehydrated and your performance is going to start to drop. Now we need to rehydrate, and at this point we've got a number of options. Option number one is the simplest, cheapest and most straightforward, and that is we're going to drink some water. As you can see though, all I've done is I've added water and we haven't added any extra salts. Now you've got a choice here. First of all, if you are eating meals, 3 times a day with salt in them, then chances are there's enough salt already and you're not going to affect the balance of the salts in your body. And actually drinking some water when you're just a little dehydrated is going to be absolutely fine and won't affect your performance. If, however, you don't have much salt in your meals, maybe you cook for yourself and your health conscious brain thinks, oh, salt's bad, and you don't use it, in that case, you're going to need to add some salt, whether it's an electrolyte tab or maybe salt in an energy bar or cereal bar, or literally a pinch of salt. So in this case, we're just going to add a little salt and get back to my ideal hydration. So now, using water and salt from the diet, we're back to being hydrated and with the correct ratios of water and salt in your body. So it's a tough training day and you've just done your second session, you've sweated it out, and despite your hard work, you're dehydrated again. So it's time to rehydrate. And this time you're going to use a sports drink, whether it's a ready mixed one that comes in a bottle, a liquid, or whether it's a powder or a tab or something like that that's then going to be added to water to then drink to rehydrate you. Now, broadly speaking, there are 3 types of sports drinks with the purpose of hydrating you. And some of them are also going to serve the double purpose of giving you calories and energy as well, which can then support your training. The first type of drink that we're going to look at then is called a hypotonic drink. Hypotonic. Hypo meaning less than, tonic meaning the concentration of salts and carbohydrates in that drink. Now, what they're talking about is less than the concentrations that are generally found in the human body. So in this case here, this is my hypotonic drink. And as you can see, it's a lot clearer because there's less squash in it, which is less salt, okay? And these hypotonic drinks also have a very low amount of carbohydrate in. And despite the fact they've got less salt in them, they are actually very quick to hydrate you because of the low concentrations in them of carbohydrate and salt. They're really quick to be absorbed. So these are actually the best way to rehydrate yourself. The second type of drink that you're going to encounter, this tends to be ready-made, like sports drinks that you see, like the big branded ones, like Lucozade and Powerade. They tend to be isotonic. So they try and mimic the levels of salt and carbohydrate that you find in the body, and they are basically the middle ground. So you've got your salts, you've got some carbohydrate as well, some energy, and they're slightly slower to absorb than the hypotonic that we just talked about. So they're slightly less effective for actually hydrating you, but you get the calories as well, which may be useful as part of your broader training and nutrition plan. And so you get your isotonic. In this case, you see it's the same colour because it's the same concentration as salt, squash, okay? And look at that, we're hydrated again, albeit ever so slightly slower. Finally, we have drinks that fall into the hypertonic category, and these tend to be your energy powders that you're going to get that you're then going to mix with water. So all the big sports nutrition brands do them, and you get a couple of scoops of powder, you put it in your bottle, add water, crack on. And what you've got there then is you get a lot of carbohydrates, and you also get some salts as well for rehydration. Now, because it's such a heavy concentration and because of the carbohydrate, it actually hydrates you a little bit slower, okay? So if you're somebody who sweats a lot, or if you're training and racing in really hot environments, then you might want to consider using a different product. So you might want to use a hypotonic drink for the purposes of hydration, and then get your calories on from somewhere else. If you're not a big sweater, and or if you're training in the winter and things like that, then actually a more concentrated product like this, a hypertonic drink, is going to be really effective for hydrating you and also refueling you. Now, as you can see, we end up with a bit of a heavier concentration in the body. Now, this actually isn't really the end of the world. It's, having a little more salt on board, isn't going to affect your performance. You may, though, wish to just have a little bit of extra water as well. So maybe you have one bottle with energy drink, one bottle with water or something like that, and you end up back in that perfect balance overall. Finally, I want to talk to you about hyponatremia, and this is where the levels of salt in your body become very low, often during prolonged periods of exercise in hot weather where people then don't hydrate properly. Now, this is basically how it goes. So I start off, hot day, I'm well hydrated. I then start training. Okay, I lost some fluid, lost some salt, no worries. We're going to have a bottle of water. Excellent. It's a long endurance type session in hot weather. So guess what? We go again. I'm losing fluids the whole time. I'm sweating salt, I'm sweating fluid. I'm losing moisture through respiration. So we hydrate again, just with water though. There's no salts here, there's no tabs, there's no, hard food with salt in, or if there is, there's very low amount. And guess what? You know what? We're a couple of hours in to a long ride, to a marathon, and we keep going like this. And then after a period of time, we end up like this. Your body, even though it's hydrated in the sense that you've got enough fluid on board, the concentration of salts in your body is now so low that it literally cannot function. At this point, there are a number of things happening. Number one, your physical performance is going to decline massively. Number two, your cognitive, your mental performance is also going to decline. And with a lot of action sports, that means danger. And the third thing, in the most extreme cases, is that this can actually kill people. Now, I'm in no way being alarmist, and for 99.9% of you, this isn't ever going to be an issue, but often on a hot day with like the big like marathons, like the London Marathon, Boston Marathon, all of that, often the cause of death for people on those hot days is hyponatremia, where they know that they need to continually drink to stay hydrated, and they just don't understand the nuance of it. They don't understand that they need the salts to properly hydrate. And throughout that period of a 4 or 5 hour marathon for an amateur runner, they just keep on doing this. They keep topping up with water, sweating out salt, until you get to this point where it's a really tragic ending. So I don't want to end on a bit of a downer, okay, but I want you to understand that is the process and that's how it happens. And basically, the hydration is important for your performance. And if you're doing ultra long endurance events, then it's super important to get it right. So to sum up then, how are we going to stay hydrated? Number one, you know what? Let's keep it simple. Salt in your meals, okay? For 99% of you, for most like short training sessions, that's going to be enough. You have salt in your meals, and then you drink water during your ride, and then maybe you get a little extra salt from a cereal bar, an energy product or something like that. Happy days. For those of you who sweat a lot, or when you're training in hot conditions, you've then got a few options, okay? So you've got things like the tabs here. Also, you get like little sachets, which do a very similar job. They've got a little bit of carbohydrate and they've got the salts in. And remember, those hypotonic drinks are the best ways to hydrate yourself, but you're going to need calories from elsewhere, from bars or gels, in real food. Finally, then there's the more concentrated products like the sports drinks that you mix up with carbohydrate, or the ready mix ones, the isotonic ones. And again, both of them do a good job of hydrating, but they're slower at hydrating because you've got that load of the carbohydrate. And also those ones can be a bit harder on your tummy as well. So if you are someone who gets a bit of discomfort on long rides when you're consuming sports drinks, then those ones are more likely to give you issues than the hypertonic ones and tabs and things like that. The bottom line is then, you've got to stay hydrated if you want to perform, no matter what level of rider you are. So I hope you found my hydration model of the body and orange squash nice and clear without being patronising. So that's what I'm trying to do, just get it across to you the best way I can. If you've got any questions, or if you think I've missed anything out, bang a question in the comments and I'll get straight back to you. And if you ride with a mate who's a right sweaty mess and who needs to watch this video, then make sure you share it as well as hit subscribe.